Chapter 405 opens up on a grand revelation. Hisoka's mind is so down in the gutter that he genuinely thinks his tastes are vanilla. I guess when your best frenemy is Illumi, that may actually track. As I'll go into in a moment, this is actually the first time we see Hisoka back in the manga since his brutalization of Kortopi and Shalnark. He wanders the Tier 1's VIP casino section, lamenting the fact that he is without a partner to ravage. See, what Hisoka is interested in is an intimate one-on-one with another person. Someone who'll be receptive to his, ravaging. He claims he wasn't interested when he heard about the Chimera ants, most likely thinking that they were just some monstrous magical beasts. While that was true for some, quite a few had rather powerful personalities and were much more reminiscent of humans than they were of ants. Hisoka doesn't know it, but he would have delighted in seeing Shayapoo spaz out and go full drama queen all over the place, or seeing Yuppie's frustration at not being able to land a proper hit on him. Please don't turn this into a power scaling debate. Hisoka definitely can't beat any of the royal guards one-on-one without them handicapping themselves. However, being too busy chasing Crollo's tail, Hisoka only heard about the ants from Illumi during the chairman election, and probably dismissed the idea right then and there. He then goes on to think how he was initially excited after he felt the rumblings created by Halkenberg's ability, but calmed down and dismissed it immediately upon hearing it was a group ability powered by a particular Nen beast. Neither of those were personal or intimate enough for his tastes, hence why his fixation with Crollo. But if you'd like to hear more on that topic, I've made a short video analyzing that very aspect of Hisoka's character, which you can check out after this video if you're interested. Now, Hisoka being made aware of exactly how the rumblings were created means that he has quite a powerful informant feeding him information. On first thought, the most obvious answer is that one of the mafia heads currently residing on Tier 1, i.e. either Onior or Broccoli, are the ones feeding him info. However, since Onior apparently isn't familiar with Nen, it's safe to say that neither is Broccoli. And as I'll explain in a bit, it's most likely that he wasn't brought on Tier 1 by the Mafia, but directly by a prince's invite. As such, 3rd Prince Zhenglei, 4th Prince Terror Sandwich, and 7th Prince Loserus come to mind first, due to their underground connections. However, it's unlikely that Zhenglei and Loserus would keep their own factions in the dark with regards to Hisoka's presence, and the Mafia doesn't seem to be aware that multiple fakes masquerading as Hisoka are on board Tier 1. Terror is a bit more likely, since I do think Hisoka and he would either hit it off, as much as Hisoka can hit it off with someone who's not a Nen powerhouse he wants to demolish. Keep in mind, this would be before Terror developed Nen. Or come to immediately dislike each other on first sight, being able to sense that they're both, similar breeds, let's say. However, since Terror is the only one among the 3 princes whose mafia affiliations seem to be almost entirely unknown, it's questionable whether he would publicly associate himself with someone of Hisoka's reputation, especially following the Heaven's Arena incident. The actual most likely prince is, I believe, 6th Prince Tyson. Considering her obsession with beautiful men, I'm sure she would have extended an invitation to Hisoka the moment she saw him on TV, and he would have further qualified for a VIP ticket thanks to his position as a floor master. Since Hisoka was prowling the casino's VIP section, it's quite possible that he's attended a few of the Sunday banquets, and could have easily charmed Tyson into spilling the beans. That is, if Izunavi and Giuliano have even been keeping Tyson up to date on what's been happening, as she is among the more, less focused princes. There's one more potentially very obvious option I can think of, but I'll save that for the end. After seeing Hisoka, we see Hisoka looking at Hisoka. Hisokaception. Nah, it's actually Bonolenov disguised as Hisoka. Many in the community thought it would actually be Chrollo, me included. But it's Bono, a troop member I often needed to look up to actually remember his name. Yet apparently you guys fucking love him, based on your comments on the Hisoka video I mentioned. A few of you even said that he was your favorite, which, I gotta say, I was really surprised by. Bono's got a small but vocal fan club. Who'd have figured? Anyway, Bono's going through his own little horror sequence as he finds himself tailing Hisoka, someone he admits he cannot defeat due to Hisoka's bungee gum being a bad matchup for Bono's own battle cantabile. I guess we finally have an answer to the age-old killer clown versus mummy matchup. Now, Bono fans, I gotta be honest with ya, it ain't looking good for your boy. Hisoka has been established as being insanely perceptive on multiple occasions. Hell, he was able to sense a trained assassin in full Zetsu without using N. Since he is using his ability to transform, Bono most likely can't engage Zetsu, meaning that chances are more than likely Hisoka is very much aware of Bono's presence. But we'll see. Bonolenov has a flashback to Chrollo, instructing him to take on Hisoka's guys, wander around, and have the Mafia eventually escort him to a nice room on the higher floors, allowing him to continue his search for the real Hisoka there. Explaining that in order to save face and minimize chaos, the Mafia would aim to isolate Hisoka somewhere the troop can't find him, since controlling him is easier than controlling the whole troop. Chrollo then says he suspects Hisoka is already on Tier 1, thanks to a prince's invitation, as mentioned earlier. Bono goes on to transform into one of the shadow beasts, namely Owl. An interesting choice, since Owl is a known Mafia associate, and it's almost certain that many of the Kakin Mafia members would recognize him. As such, this is either a screw-up on Bono's part, or a pre-planned strategy by Chrollo. As a side note, since the duration of Bono's transformation depends on how long he's spent time with that person, and he feels comfortable enough transforming into Owl, implies that Phaeton and him had quite a lot of fun times together. Getting back on track, through Bono it's also revealed that he was actually the Hisoka Lynch and Zakuro ran into. See, Lynch's punch did actually land, with her ability revealing his true identity. Bono then knocks her out, immediately realizes that Zakuro didn't hear the inner voice from Lynch's body and soul ability, promptly knocks him out, takes his form, wakes Lynch up, confirms that she plans to have Heinrich put him on the top of their hit list, proceeds to kill her so as to avoid that, takes her identity again and wakes Zakuro up to avoid arousing suspicion, and then finally meets Heinrich in the movie theater, now masquerading as Hisoka, and gets his ticket to the upper decks as Chrollo predicted. Whew. A few notes on this. A. While I still can't say he's among my favorites, I have to say that I do have a new appreciation for Bonolenov. He is self-aware enough wherein he recognizes that he can't beat Hisoka in a 1v1, and opts to be proactive about it by asking Chrollo for advice. To add to that, I also very much like the fact that while highly competent, he is not a strategic mastermind, essentially incapable of making tactical mistakes or making wrong calls. He is unsure of his conclusions, and while he'd prefer to get Chrollo's input, he isn't incapable of action of his own accord. Also, I've gotta say that dude's a pretty fantastic actor. It's unfortunate he wasn't one of the founding members. He would have been a really good fit for the troupe when it was less murder and thievery and more dubbing and acting oriented. B. Considering he was able to knock down Lynch and Zakuro with minimal effort confirms the fact that the Nen using Mafia enforcers are still complete fodder to even the mid-level PT members. This would then work to scale Heinrich and Kenny as being about Shadow Beast level or so, considering they were the strongest combatants of each of the then 10 Mafia families. You know, before they got absolutely annihilated. Now, one of the last things Bono says is how Chrollo is looking for a treasure, which is actually an ability that would let him kill Hisoka for good. I am really unsure what this means, but I've come up with two possibilities. The first is that Machi didn't fully grasp the mechanics behind how Hisoka revived himself, and thinks that he has some kind of post-mortem Nen empowered Hatsu that allows him to return back to life, akin to second Prince Camilla. The second is that Chrollo is worried about Hisoka being butthurt, spiteful and vengeful enough where he'd manifest as an actual curse to hunt the spiders following his demise, as he's already shown an affinity for post-mortem nen. The recent introduction of low-level evil spirits implies the existence of high-level evil spirits, i.e. the manifestations of a person's particularly malicious post-mortem nen, which non-users would think of as demons or yokai. Hisoka could literally become the demon clown hiding under your bed. Imagine that. Now, the even stranger and interesting thing is Bonolenov's soft implication that this treasure or ability, whatever it may be, would actually be dangerous for Chrollo to either obtain or use, citing that as the reason the troop members are hurrying to get to Hisoka first. That part of Bonolenov's monologue is worded a bit vaguely, so it's possible it's meant to refer to something else. Finally, Bono mentions something about Chrollo which I'd really like to go into, but I'll save it as another 5 to 6 minute character analysis video, which I'll make when I find the time. We move on to Nobunaga, Finks, and Phaeton, who've made their way back to the Sha-A, or Char family headquarters and are discussing the status of the rogue AE with Tajao, the vice boss, and Kenny, the underboss. Nobunaga makes the case that the rogue AE aren't actually a true mafia family, as they don't have the same priority of balance, actively target civilians, and are overall bringers of chaos. He recognizes their impulse to destroy everything, as it's a mentality the troop once had as well. As such, this means their nature, their essence or spirit is fundamentally different and thus not compatible with the classification of a Kakin mafia family. Tajao appears to agree, claiming that they and the Shu-U or Ji-U will coordinate with the spiders to annihilate Morena and her doomsday flock, and opens the secret door with which the troop can gain access to the AE hideout on the much coveted second tier. At that moment, it is revealed that Ken E. Wang, the Sha-A underboss, is actually secretly affiliated with Morena, showing worry that the troop may be coming for her much sooner than anticipated, further mentioning that they may have to employ their Joker sooner rather than later. While the Joker could be anything from a person to an item or ability, if we assume it's a person, there are two options that come to mind. 1. Hisoka, obviously. Morena is the final option I could think of for Hisoka's informant, as mentioned at the beginning. If the troop is indeed near their hideout, she could very easily divert their attention by dangling a far more appetizing carrot in front of them. 2, and hear me out on this, Kaiser. He and Kenny look reasonably alike, to the point where they could pass as brothers, or at least cousins. While a few chapters ago I would have ignored such superficial resemblances, considering the latest soap opera-esque familial developments and twists, I'm getting quite paranoid, I've got to say. If Melody's initial hunch was right and Kaiser is actually a manipulator manipulating himself, this could include altering his memories and motivations. Perhaps it'd be under a selective hypnosis, which would make it so that certain actions are automatically carried out or selectively forgotten, so as to maintain the facade. Such complex self-manipulation may be helped with the condition that only Morena is capable of undoing Kaiser's self-imposed hypnosis. Sleeper agent-esque. If this is indeed true, it's possible he may have actually placed the curse on 11th Prince Fugetsu, led the others to the conclusion that it was 7th Prince Luzurus, and then offered to help with the assassination. Bear in mind, he did so without hesitation or considering any alternatives. If this is the case, his motivation for killing the 7th Prince would be to aid Morena in sparking chaos. With the benefactor and true boss of the Sha-A family dead, there would be all-out war, especially if the Shu-U or their benefactor could be blamed. After all, 3rd Prince Zhenglei would have had all the motivation needed to kill a rival in both the Mafia and Succession battle. The neutrality of the Justice Bureau could also be compromised. 1st Prince Benjamin would try to implement his much-beloved martial law, and what would be left is pure, unadulterated chaos. Morena's goal would be all but realized.
Speaking of Morena, we cut to her and see that a bunch of her followers have leveled up and are looking to take revenge on Heinrich for dismantling them some days before like a bunch of toys. Morena also plans to use the crowd that's to be gathered for Ninth Prince Halkenberg's funeral to have Dogman sniff out, literally, the Nen types of the gathered people, determine whether they've learned Nen, and have Sodom abduct them. They're most likely searching for emitters, since they were established as highly coveted, or specialists, due to how naturally rare they are. I'm pretty sure none of her followers have been specialists thus far. This in the hopes of getting them to join their cause and develop a specific ability Morena and co. needs to conduct their final plan. We end on Nobu, Finks, and Phaeton, led by Tajao, encountering something quite unexpected after venturing through the door. Considering Finks' face is reminiscent of Netero's after setting foot on the DC, and that even Phaeton looks mildly unnerved, I can't wait to see what it is. The Shu-U have that girl Misha Hao, whose post-mortem Nen allows them to easily dispose of kills they make, especially ones made in the open, so maybe the Sha-A have some post-mortem Nen empowered teleporter or something. And that's chapter 405 done. I am way too tired. Getting 2 videos out back to back really took the wind out of my sails, so I'll get right to it. As always, thank you very much for watching. Feedback is always appreciated. I'd very much like to thank Kamaswami for going the extra mile in supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.